Automatic pet feeders are nothing new. I've had a non-smart pet feeder for years. This way, when I would go away for trips, my cats could still be fed. The problem in my case is a cat that will sit and just keep eating food until there's nothing left. So something like this didn't work as intended. The solution to this? A smart pet feeder that can be controlled remotely, can have a pre-set up feeding schedule, and more. This is where the Aqara Smart Pet Feeder C1 comes in. I'm Wanderer 001. Let's get into it. Starting things off, some general specifications. The Smart Pet Feeder itself is 12.2 inches high and has a depth and width of 7.5 inches. The feeder itself is broken up into 3 separate areas. You have your food hopper up top here, which is see-through plastic, so you can get an idea of how much food you actually have left. It holds approximately 16 cups or 3.75 pounds of food. If we take the top off, this is how we would load up the hard food, but also Aqara is nice enough to give us a cyclic dry pack that we can keep on top here to make sure that our hard food stays moisture free longer. The second portion of the pet feeder is here. If we pinch these 2 release nubs there, the food hopper itself comes off, so you can wash this portion. Included with the being able to wash is this interior section here, which is much easier to see now that I have it off. There's a set of silicone flappers that push pre-distributed food amounts to your pet. So the fact that that is removable is very helpful for cleaning. If we come closer, we can see the motorized unit and the brains behind the operation right there. If we come down even further on the smart feeder, we can see there is a blue status light, a microphone, and then 3 buttons. The 3 buttons are for pairing, distributing food, and you might have heard something say, come get your food. That's what this one's for. This is a microphone that you press to record what you want said. It's time to eat, come get your food. And then press food. It's not terribly loud, but it's nice that it's there. And then right here, we can see the food chute, which drops into the food bowl. The food bowl is also made up of 2 separate parts. We have our metal bowl here, and then this can be taken out to clean. And then we have the plastic holder for the bowl right there. The bowl itself is 6 inches across and approximately 1.5 inches deep. What I do like about this is the fact that unlike some other feeders that can get knocked around, this actually locks into place with 2 channels right there to the underside of the feeder, making it much more difficult for your pet to knock this around and move it. Coming around to the back, there's not a lot to look at, just your dedicated power port. It is a barrel port, and then our cable right here. This is a braided cable, but is very short. It's just over 4 feet in length, and in my case, in my kitchen, I don't have any electrical outlets at floor level. They're all up. So this is kind of stretched up and out of the way, which is a little odd, but just something I want you to be aware of. The cable itself is rather good. I do wish it was a USB-C connector because the end is a USB-A connector and didn't have a power brick. But if we look at the bottom right here, we can see 4 rubber feeties to help keep it in place, a battery drawer that takes LR20 batteries so that it acts as a backup if you lose power, and then a very, very small speaker. The audio from this is okay, but I'll show you that a little later. Now that we've seen the smart feeder and all of its components, what else do we get with it? Let's take a look. Starts off with the manual. We've got the brains of the operation, the food dispenser itself, which is apparently going to house everything else. So let's take a look. Open up the top. They provide you with a cyclic packet, put in the top there. You've got your power, the bowl, and then the plastic part for the bowl. Now that we've seen everything that we get and don't get, what's next? Well, that's setup. And with something like this, if it's difficult to set up, it's not going to get used. What I can say for the Aqara Pet Feeder C1 is it's really simple to set up. However, it requires an Aqara hub in order to set up. If you don't have an Aqara hub, this isn't going to work. Let me show you what that was like. This will be setup of the Aqara Smart Pet Feeder C1. We're going to start things off by plugging it in via the USB-A style port. I've got a blue light on the front. And now I'm going to come up into the Aqara app. I'm going to press the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner. We are going to add an accessory. There's a lot we can go through. So we're going to look for pet, make this easier. There's the C1. So it wants us to long press this button on the far right, 5 seconds until blue light blinks quickly. There we go. It's blinking. It's chirping. I can hear my hub downstairs talking. So I'm not entirely sure if it gave a command. Oh, no, it says it was added successfully. So we're going to say Smart Pet Feeder C1. We're going to leave that name, location. In my case, this is going to live in the kitchen. And I'm going to select next. And here's just information about the device. So add it to the home screen. We're going to say done. And these are our options for the pet feeder. So if we come back to the main screen, should have a card. So here we go. That's security page. This is the home page. So there's my pet feeder. And from there, I can do what I need to do. All right, that was setup. Not bad. There you saw, it wasn't terrible. And I should have had the Aqara Hub closer when I was setting it up, but it did say connecting to device when I went through it because my wife let me know because it was downstairs when I was upstairs putting this together. With setup out of the way, aside from the 3 buttons here, I had mentioned setting up a feeding schedule or being able to remotely put food into the bowl. How's this done? Well, that's all done through the Aqara app. Let me show you. This is the application for the Aqara Smart Pet Feeder C1. As you can see right here, I have my Aqara G3 hub, which is my Zigbee hub, which is allowing me to use this. Right on here, I have a card for it. It is located on the home board. If you have a security monitoring board, it's not going to be there. It's going to be on your home. From here, I can quick toggle a feed if I want to. My cat's in the kitchen currently and eating dinner, so I don't want to give him more food. But if I selected that, it would drop some more food for him. If I select the card for the C1 right here, we could see up here at the top the name of the pet feeder. We could see the portions that have been fed today. And I'll insert some clips of actual information. It will show the number of portions, the total grams, which is guesstimates if you don't calibrate it yourself. We have a button to feed immediately. So if I did this, it would drop a portioned amount. And then down here, we have one-time feeding amount. These are our portions. So whenever I click this, what it's going to do is drop 1 portion, which is about 8 grams. Now you can go all the way up to a portion size 10, which would be the equivalent of 80 grams worth of food. But my recommendation is to fine tune it before you actually start using with your pet. If you have an idea of the scoop that you use, that's how I did it. I portioned it out and then figured out what that equivalated to for the one-time portions. Now we do have a feeding schedule here and you can turn this on or off. In my case, if I toggle that off, it will now turn off the feeding schedule and you can see it's gray, or I could turn that back on. The event is pre-programmed for 3 times a day. If I need to edit this plan, I can do this simply by selecting the edit. I could change it to every day, Monday through Friday, weekends, custom, where I could click what I want it to be. We've got our feeding time. So if I select one of these, I can adjust the time and then the portion size. And like I said, you get 3 of those. If I press the plus sign here, I can actually add another feeding time and feeding amount. If for whatever reason you want to remove a feeding from the schedule, simply drag that over to the left and you can select delete. Very important to know that, so you don't have to worry about a 3 stacked feeding schedule like I had. And then down here we have our power supply. Currently I am on power and not battery. If I scroll back up to the top here, 3 dots in the corner, that's going to be our settings for this. Simply by selecting here, I could change the name. I could change its location. That's the device information, the FAQ for it, device privacy policy and manufacturer. And then there's device ID and firmware down there, which I will not be showing you. Coming down, device settings, we can turn off the indicator light. There is a blue light on the front of it if we don't want that to be displayed during 2100 through 0900. That's where we can do that. You have your child safety lock. So after activation, no food will be output through the manual button located on the feeder. And then for statistical, you have the ability to change your grams. It's not, again, going to change the output. It's merely for keeping track. Coming down, we have our hub. This is connected to my G3. That's the hub that it's working off of, and it'll bring you right into it if you select that. We have our Zigbee signal, and right there, you can see listed as good currently, and then excellent right now. And then it kind of shows you a chart, and you can pinch to zoom to get an idea of how your signal has been over the course of a day. We've got our firmware update. Click on that, it'll check. In this case, I do have a firmware, so I would select update and it would update it. We've got our related items of device. We've got our automations and scenes. If I select an automation, it's an if this, then that scenario. And a scene, similarly, it's add an action. So what do we want to happen? If you have more Aqara product, this will make more sense. This will give you more to play with. Device replacement, replacing this device with another. Gives you a little information about that policy, and then logs letting you know, hey, what's been going on with this feeder. And that's everything under the settings. But overall, that is everything that we can do in the Aqara app for the Aqara Smart Pet Feeder C1. The app itself is fairly basic for the smart feeder, which I do appreciate. You don't want something overly complex. However, you can make things a little more complex if you wanted to. I kind of breezed over this portion where you could set up a trigger routine, if this then that, using Aqara equipment. A example would be if you use the Aqara Hub G3 or a motion sensor to check when your pet has eaten, or if it hasn't eaten, then you would do, if food was dispensed, then turn the camera to the pet feeder to mark this event on the video timeline and continue monitoring for motion. If no motion was detected for 3 hours, then do not dispense food. Now, the problem with this is you have to have that other camera, because this one, unlike some other smart pet feeders, does not have a camera of its own. If you're looking for compatibility outside the Aqara platform, Smart Pet Feeder here is compatible with Home Assistant, Google Home, Alexa, and IFTTT. With compatibility out of the way, what's next? For me, that's starting my testing. First off, when I have something that's plugged into power all the time, I want to know how much power is actually being consumed by the device. In the case of the Aqara C1 Smart Pet Feeder, when it's plugged in and idling, as it is now, it's not doing anything, the power consumption was actually negligible, which I'm happy to see. When dispensing food and using the recording, it only uses 0.7 watts of power, which for something like this is more than adequate. Next, audio. I want to hear how good the recording is that comes from this, as well as how noisy the motor dispensing the food is. Let me show you.
Come get your food. Come get your food. Come get your food. It's time to eat. Come get your food. It's time to eat.
Now, while my cat might not be able to hear the audio from this, he sure could hear the food hitting the dish here and would come running. He would also sit in front of it when he knew it was getting close for food to come out, waiting for food. So once your animal gets used to the sound coming from it, there won't be any problems. Now, there are a lot of things that I like about this, and this is my second Aqara device, but there are a few cons that I want to bring to your attention. First being, this needs an Aqara hub to work. If you're just buying this and have no other Aqara products or Aqara hubs or anything, this is not going to work at all. I'm pretty sure this gets returned a lot because people don't realize that. Second, bad audio. The microphone and audio that this has, think of it as, it's nice that it's there, but it's pretty much worthless. It's not loud, it's garbled, it's a gimmick, in my opinion. The fact that it doesn't come with a wall brick and has a USB-A connector to barrel port connector just seems like a missed opportunity. It should be a USB-C to a USB-A that comes with a wall brick. I understand that I have a lot of technology and I have wall bricks lying around, but you might not have any. So either you're going to need an adapter or find yourself a wall brick. Next, while the cable quality is good, the cable length is not. It needs to be longer. And again, if they're redesigning this in the future for the C2 maybe, take that in consideration, Aqara, USB-C to USB-A, and a longer than 4-foot cable length. And the last, even though this is a clear container, there's no real indication when food gets really low. You can see it kind of goes into the body itself with the level of food. So even if I can still see some food here, it's not gonna let me know, hey, there's only like 4 to 5 feedings left. I wish there was something like that. And I kind of wish that there was a camera. Yes, that would make this a little more expensive, but also would make it so that I don't have to have another Aqara device in close proximity, because let me tell you, I cannot have my Aqara camera in the kitchen at an eye level to keep an eye on the cat. He just would not have that. And I don't have enough electrical outlets to make that happen. So those are the shortcomings that I wanted to bring to your attention. Overall, while I do understand that not everyone looking for a smart pet feeder will have access to a Zigbee hub like the Aqara G3, like I do, I will say that if you're not just looking for a smart pet feeder, but rather a start to your smart home, then this pet feeder would be a great start, as well as the Aqara G3 camera hub. The Aqara smart pet feeder filled a very important need that I had and was not sure how best to fill it. Yes, there are other smart pet feeders out there, some even with built-in cameras, but for me, this smart pet feeder fit nicely into my smart home setup, allowing me to do more complex if this then that setups than I would be able to using just an everyday smart pet feeder. And it has helped me control my cat's food intake, which is very important for him being a diabetic. Because of this, I can recommend the Aqara Smart Pet Feeder C1 as long as you're aware of what you need to actually use it. And I will say I am sorry for not having my actual pet in the video. We got this for him to help with his food intake and to keep his diabetes in control. And when I was testing this, he passed away. It was very hard for me to put this video together, and I couldn't bring myself to put the clips of him that I had using the pet feeder. So I apologize if you were looking to actually see a pet usage of this. I can say that he did use it and did sit in front of it and complain to the feeder that it wasn't feeding him when he thought he should have been. But I assure you, it did work. If this sounds like the smart pet feeder you've been looking for, I will have a link where you can pick one up for yourself in the description area below. If you appreciate the time and effort that goes into making comprehensive videos like this, make sure to hit that like button to help other people find the video as well. If you like what I'm doing here and want to be notified of my next review, hit that subscribe button. Still not sure if this is the right smart pet product for you? On screen now, you'll see 2 other reviews that I've done to help you make a more informed decision for yourself.